Hi, I'm Charlene. I've been a theater actor for the last 20 years. I'm also managing director of Two Tin Cans Philippines, and I recently played Truvy in Steel Magnolias. So it all started at the age of 13. That's when I caught the theater bug. My mom, who's like this amazing kanang stage mom, she enrolled me in a musical theater workshop. So before that, I only did mostly singing and I was dancing competitively. And for her, it made sense to combine all these things and then of course include acting as well. And that's why that was her like kind of thinking behind enrolling me in a musical theater workshop. Before that moment, I didn't know much about musical theater or just theater in general. But when I started with the workshops, the concept of combining singing, dancing, and acting all in one, it really it just blew my mind. And that's when my love for the culture of musical theater, the music, the show tunes, Broadway, West End, that's where my kind of love for that started. It kind of became like a safe space for me, like a sanctuary. I felt like I found a community that accepted me. People were telling me that I was good, at what I was doing. People were telling me that I had potential. After that workshop came another workshop and another workshop. And then from then, I just joined everything I could. I've really fallen in love, not just with the performance itself, the performance element of it, but the process of theater making. From the audition to the first reading to the final closing night, that whole process, it was so interesting to me. And at the end, when you kind of look back to what you've done so far, it's just so satisfying. Those videos where they're scraping the sabon and it looks so satisfying. That's how I feel when the curtain closes on the last night. It's it's so satisfying. It's like scratching an itch. Theater is I wouldn't consider it just one discipline. It's a bunch of different art forms converging to create one thing. One department is just as important as the next. All these people, all these teams working together to create a series of moments that hopefully will impact the audience. The most special for me at this point is when we did a memory, a monologue, a rant, and a prayer. It was part of V-Day Cebu 2020. One of the reasons it was special for me is because I really loved the collaboration that I had with our director, who was Vincent Caton. And I worked really closely with Vince to kind of identify what the arc of the character is throughout the monologue. And I just really love the process with Vince. Before, in the past, in other productions and other acting stints that I did, I would memorize the hell out of a script, right? One of the things he told me to do was don't rehearse at home. You can run the lines for memorization's sake, because he wanted every run, every rehearsal, every performance to be as fresh as possible. The format of MMRP, for short, is it's really just a bunch of monologues. It's like an anthology of monologues, similar to the format of the Vagina Monologues. My monologue was about a woman who was an activist, and kind of the journey of the monologue is she starts out being really frustrated and angry, then she has a meltdown, and then at the end of the monologue, she kind of gives up. It was quite a long monologue, so it was a lot to memorize. I also had to find ways to make it interesting. I didn't want it to be boring, obviously, for the audiences, so I had to kind of find my moments. And I think on the final performance, we were quite happy with it. I liked how engaged the audience was, and it was really satisfying. Another thing that makes that experience for me so special was the production, the whole production itself. So our venue for that particular production we were in an art gallery. It wasn't like a big, auditorium or theater. It's an art gallery lang. It's not a small space, not such a big space. Our audience members were sitting all over the place. Naay maglingkod sa chairs, naay maglingkod og stool, naay maglingkod sa kanang beanbag on the floor, naay maglingkod sa floor gyud. So the audiences were scattered, and then kami sa mga performers, we were also all over the place. It wasn't just one one stage and then ganhara may mag-perform. Lain-lain mi og blocking or positioning. It kind of proved that you don't have to, theater or plays are not limited to like an auditorium or like a theater guild. It can be pretty much anywhere. I love performances like that. They are intimate. I really love intimate theater. That's my favorite kind of format and venue. The first time I read a script, I really try to read it as an audience. The next step is really to memorize it. Memorize the hell out of it. Memorize it so much. When someone says go, I can recite it like in 2x speed. The script is sacred. The script is like basically our knowledge base as actors. It's where everything should come from, where everything is rooted in terms of like whatever choices we do on stage. In rehearsal, that's when the fun begins. So we throw away the technicalities of what we've memorized. We forget all of our prejudice, all of the plans that we made when we were memorizing and reading the script. Really just go with the flow, work with your director. The first time I run a scene, I like to do it according to like what my first instinct is. Every time I run it after that first time, I try to go against my instinct, just so that there's like a fresh take to it. That's more interesting than like falling into tropes, mannerisms that we see a lot in films and other plays. And then of course, to supplement the character that you're building, that's when the research comes in. Read the script, enjoy the script as an audience, memorize, then throw that out the window, and then experiment during rehearsals, and then supplement that with research. When actors have to get into character, we really have to exercise empathy, especially like, for example, if you're playing like a villain or like a serial killer. You cannot judge your character and say, oh, they're a bad person. No, you have to go to the root of it. Like, how did they get to where they are? What brought them to commit, whatever crimes they committed. You can't be too judgmental. Learning empathy through theater, it also translates into my everyday life. It's something I'm still working on. Of course, it's an ongoing kind of lesson for me. But I think it's definitely helped in my real life, in my everyday life. I would really love to play Gertrude from Hamlet by Shakespeare. So I did Gertrude before, but it was a Zoom performance with theater space under Miss Ana Valdez Lim. I absolutely enjoyed that whole experience. But it was on Zoom. It was during the pandemic. It was on Zoom. And I just really would love to do that in person on a stage. I think that would be so cool. It would be so fun to act in, on a stage with my co-actors rather than on Zoom. So even though, I've been doing theater since I was 13. That's like 20 years already. I'm still very much unsure of myself. Every time I have to act, I have to do things. It comes from the fact that I have this insecurity that I'm not formally trained. You know what? Now that I think of it, I think even people who do have formal training, who have like a master's degree in acting or whatever, I'm sure they still experience doubts. We're in the entertainment industry. In our society, audiences would rather see pretty people on stage. They have this expectation of, a certain beauty standard. And by that, I mean, if it were a female character, a woman who is, I guess, tall, light-skinned, and thin, and has a pretty face. For men, same thing. I mean, it's no different for men. They would rather have tall, dark, and handsome, I'm assuming. I don't know. So a lot of producers, a lot of the theater makers that cast their shows, of course, are most likely to cast people who look good. And if you look at me, I am not exactly to that beauty standard. And what that means is I'm given roles that are mostly matriarchal roles, or like I'm the sassy best friend, or like I'm the fat girl who doesn't want to be fat anymore. My physique, my body is definitely an insecurity of mine, especially when I'm auditioning for things. But I'm now of the mindset na if a casting or a director or a producer who is casting a role If they're willing to take the risk and cast a big woman, that's someone that I would want to work with, and that's someone that I would like to respect. But if not, then okay rasad. It's like I don't have to wait for the next audition. I can find a play that features a fat, complex woman who's not the sassy best friend, or who's not the mom or the matriarchal figure. I can put up plays. Ako lang i-propose ni Miss Sarah niya, muyasra na. Siya. We all know you can't please everyone. So the fact that we're actors, we're performers, that we perform in front of audiences, we're putting ourselves in a position to be criticized. Like, it's part of the job. A few times I've been told, someone said, ay, murag same man to yung role 2 years ago. That criticism really stuck with me because I never want to hear that again. The goal is to be a chameleon, is to be able to shape-shift from role to role. The way I took it was, I didn't work on my character enough. Kuwang kog work ato, kuwang kog research, kuwang kog exploration, kuwang kog commitment. So that's how I took it, and then I worked on it. There's a saying that you're only as good as your last performance, and I think I kind of believe in that. I always try to one-up myself. I don't really want to compete with anyone else. I'm only wanting to improve upon my last performance. That's how I move forward. I think in the beginning, when I was much younger, theater for me, it was really just a passion or an outlet, and it still is. It still is. Now, for me, I see theater as a way of empowering the marginalized, the voiceless, and I want to be the kind of actor that helps facilitate that and hopefully inspires change in the audience. I want them to walk out not just having enjoyed the show, like, oh, that was fun. I want them to question things, question society, question our reality, because, at the end of the day, that's what theater is. It's a reflection of society. It's a reflection of our reality right now. It's become kind of my way of inspiring change in society. If you are in it for the glitz and the glamour, actually, what much glitz and glamour is a theater? If that's what you're in it for, I think you're better off, going viral on TikTok or something. Theater requires a lot of grit, commitment, sacrifice, but it also requires compassion and patience as well. But you should try it and see if you like it. A lot of us theater people I don't know if it's the right term, but I think a lot of us are quite addicted to it. In a way, it's kind of masochistic. Like, think about it. Like, we join plays, we join productions, we spend so much time working on something. We spend so much time with our co-actors, the production team, all of that. We create these bonds with our co-actors, with the production, through fond memories or sometimes even shared trauma. And then we finally perform the show in front of an audience and we feel like we're on top of the world. We feel like we've created something so amazing, like we're gonna change the world, like we're so good. And then it ends. It's done. After all that effort, after all that time you put in, after all that sacrifice, it's done. And that's the beauty of theater. It's created for the now, never to be replicated or repeated again. If you can accept that, if you can appreciate that, then try it out and see if you think it is worth it. But for me, I think it's worth it, for sure.